Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of NB Bassin. I am your host, Donald Patterson, here again for another week. Before we get started, once again, I want to thank Fish Bum Outfitters, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, and Northern Michigan Outfitters for all they do for me. Excuse me. Not even a minute into the show and I'm coughing already. That might not be a good sign. And most of all, as always, I have to thank my wife and my son. Without their support, what I do just wouldn't be possible. Well, what are we going to talk about this week? Anyone who has been watching our Facebook page and noticed the links that have been put up have probably at least heard tell of the appearance I was fortunate enough to make, and I can't thank Ian West enough for the opportunity to appear on the Fear Fishing webcast. If you've actually seen the show, then you heard me mention something that I am going to get to here in a little bit. There's a little bit of an elephant in the room in that respect. But I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit on that one for a few minutes. And I just wanted to move on to just a quick little update on the New Brunswick tournament season, which I mentioned in passing when I was on with Ian and the gang on Fear Fishing the other night. The New Brunswick tournament season is coming up very quickly. May 7th, Harvey Lake. I have spoken personally with a number of new teams that are looking at coming out to Harvey Lake. And that in itself is something that I am absolutely thrilled about. The fact that we have new teams coming out, joining the ranks of competitive bass anglers here in New Brunswick. And before that gets here, I just want to tip my hat to them. It's an intimidating step to make. And I mean, I know this and I can speak from experience because it was only a couple of years ago I did it myself. It's a very intimidating step to make, to all of a sudden jump in, especially first event of the season. Everybody and their dog is coming out. Everybody wants to knock the rust off, get the dust off the boats, and just get out and get a line wet. And spring of the year, cold water, Harvey's not an easy bite. It's got a few select pockets that you're going to pull big bags out of. Other than that, you are going to work. You're going to work for every bite you get. So a tip of the hat to these new teams coming out, and of course to the returning teams. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again this spring. We've had enough functions here over the last little bit between the Sportsman's Show, the flea market last weekend. You know, got to see a lot of familiar faces we normally only see in the summertime. So it's definitely given everybody the itch and they're anxious to go. But that being said, I want to give a little advice to these new teams, especially on a body of water like Harvey Lake. And this applies to, I'm specifically referring to Harvey Lake, but this applies to teams that are fishing a new event or joining a new tour or a new club for the first time, and you're going to be fishing unfamiliar water. It's great to get out, and you will see guys who know that body of water, dropping their boat in, hammer down, and they're gone. Well, my partner Jason and I, we went through this last year. We got to Harvey Lake. Our lakes here in New Brunswick don't open until just a few days before this tournament, so normally pre-fishing is not an option. My partner had been on this lake once. I never had been. It's an extremely rocky lake. It has a reputation for being dangerous. If you're lucky, you'll just lose the lower unit. If you're not so lucky, you could lose your boat. Or worse, yourself. So, of course, first event of the year, we draw, I believe it was number 6. A real good starting position, normally. But a real good starting position only does you any good if you actually know where you're going. And when you're on a dangerous lake, especially for us, our boat was significantly slower than a lot of the other boats in the field. So it's not safe, not practical for us to be out there trying to mix it up and stay on the tail of a 250 when we're running a 90 at the time. And there's other 250s or 225s breathing down our neck and a very narrow channel to run. So yes, if you're new, nobody wants to sit back and watch a takeoff when you're supposed to be a part of it. But for safety's sake and out of respect for your fellow anglers, if you have to give way to somebody, give way to somebody. It's all about everybody having fun. Yes, I know. And maybe if you know the lake, you may be new to tournament fishing, but you may have grown up on that lake or grown up fishing that lake. By all means, just because you're the new guy, don't give way. It comes down to your knowledge base. Like I said, it's all a safety factor and a respect factor. Nobody wants to get run into at any time through the year and have damage done to their boat. The first of the season is even worse because then you may lose out on the rest of your season. It's hard to say depending on what happens. So just be very aware. This isn't like your Bass Elite or your FLW or your Major League Fishing where everybody's running comparable boats with comparable technology. There's some severe variance in what we're all running. There are guys running in our series, 300 horse Mercs. And then there's guys running 50s or 75s. So in a lake in particular, in the river it's not bad because our river here, our St. John River here in New Brunswick is wide open. There's all kinds of room in most places to run, so you can get out and get around somebody. But on a lake with very distinct channels that are safe to run, just be aware. I know I'm rambling, but it came across my mind the other night, and I figured I better mention it because I do know there's some new teams coming out. And it's just, I don't want to see anyone get hurt. I want to grow this sport. I don't want to scare people away. So I'm not trying to scare anybody away from Harvey Lake. I want everybody to come out. But I want everybody to come out, have fun, and be safe. So just keep that in mind when you're on a new body of water. If you haven't had adequate time to explore it, just use your head a little bit, and everything should work out just fine. Now, getting back to what I mentioned right off the top, the Fear Fishing broadcast with Ian West. Once again, thank you, Ian, for the opportunity to come on and speak. I really do hope that I get the opportunity to do it again. You had mentioned maybe coming on mid-season and giving a little update as to what was taking place here in New Brunswick. And I definitely would love to do that. We talked about a number of things going on here in New Brunswick. The growth in the striped bass fishery, the growth of the Miramichi Striper Cup, just the strength of bass fishing in general, and what I see as the start of a resurgence, or at least the potential for a resurgence in the sport here in New Brunswick, if we manage it right. There's some younger anglers that are taking an interest, that are investing some money in boats and equipment. We have to be ready to make sure, I'm not saying to cater to anybody, young or old, but we have to make sure that the necessary accommodations are made to keep those young anglers interested. The seminars that have been being conducted here in New Brunswick are a big help, because it takes more experienced, knowledgeable anglers are sharing some of their knowledge. So if these younger anglers have a chance to take part and sit in on one of these seminars, then they're gonna benefit from that, and that's gonna help them grow their knowledge base and help them grow their confidence level going into the season. So the first time they're on the water this year, and I know myself personally, I heard something at one of these seminars that didn't it made sense once I heard it, but for some reason it had never registered in my mind before. Well, that's in there now, and I'm going to definitely keep that in mind, especially the first couple times of the year on the water this year when the water's colder. So all this stuff is a great benefit. And the other thing that I'm looking at, and I have a handful of people that are looking at this with me, bringing bigger events to the region. If these younger anglers have the opportunity to step it up to a higher level earlier in their career, earlier in their fishing career, we'll call it, then that just gives them more motivation. And I had never spoken publicly about this plan. I've been working behind the scenes for a while now, and there's still nothing concrete in place. So don't think that this means this is happening. But we are working behind the scenes, trying to see how much interest we can generate quietly. Like I say, not so quietly anymore. But just see how much interest we can generate at bringing an FLW Canada event to New Brunswick. The FLW expanded internationally. FLW Canada was one of the first, international organizations to be a part. Currently, their tournaments are confined strictly to Ontario. And I applaud Corey Banford and his group in Ontario for everything they have done. And I've been working with Corey, talking to him. I was actually talking to him for a minute this morning about what we're doing here in New Brunswick to see if this is going to be practical. There is no reason, in my opinion, why our New Brunswick fishery cannot sustain such an event. Is everybody going to want to do it? No. I understand that. I understand this isn't going to be something for everyone. But I think the interest level is there from New Brunswick and surrounding areas, Nova Scotia, possibly a few from Maine, Quebec, and possibly even anglers from Ontario. And why not? And this goes... Yes, I'm talking specifically about New Brunswick, and I understand not everybody listening to this show is from New Brunswick. But the same could apply to other smaller jurisdictions. If you take the time to get the right people involved, get the right interest generated, then this is possible, I'll say almost anywhere. We have, for New Brunswick specifically, and that's where I have to speak of because that's where I am, and obviously that's where I'm working, excuse me again. But here in New Brunswick and other smaller jurisdictions, yes, it's going to mean you're going to have to, excuse me, I just grab a drink of water here. You're going to have to attract attention from outside your hometown, your province, your state, depending on the situation. Do I think we can run this event strictly on New Brunswick anglers? In theory, yes. In reality, I doubt it. Do I think we can do it based on just anglers in the Maritimes? There's a stronger possibility. But this is FLW Canada. Why not make it a larger, more widespread event as far as attracting anglers from outside the region? Why not bring those Quebec and Ontario anglers down here? It's an economic benefit for the host town. We've got a couple places in mind right now. Nothing's secure, so I'm not even going to get into that. But it's an economic benefit for the host town. It's an economic benefit for the province. If all of a sudden there's that many eyes turning towards New Brunswick,